Hey, Don, it's Alyssa. Do we allow note takers, the otters?
We usually make them leave. Probably should. It's up to you. You're controlling.
You're out of here.
We might not have very many people today, too, with it being so close to the conference. I don't know. It is,
Yeah, probably the hurricane.
and the hurricane. Yeah, there's a
Just,
lot of meetings going on.
yeah.
Um, what is 302? I do not want to um, waste people's time. So Herschel and Tyler, it's good to see you. Catherine, I'm glad that you're here too. And
Hi,
thank
Don.
you for interpreting. We have some fresh faces. There's Rebecca. So, Tyler, I don't know if you were with Knoxville's advocacy meeting yesterday.
I was, yeah.
Do you have anything that you want to maybe share that was gone over?
Um, so right now NASOC is working on putting together, it's kind of transitioned into advocacy and outreach. So we're kind of getting off of the ground, as it were. So a lot of what we talked about was we're working on a survey to build up resources for other folks in Silks, because right now it's hard to find good technical assistance and it's hard to know what Silk is good at what thing. So for example, my Silk works really well with our DSE and with our network of centers. And if someone wanted, to talk about that, we'd be a good place to come to. But it'd be hard to figure that out.
Mhm.
Um, and I know that, for example, see, I'm blanking on it. So we don't have a good handle on who does what and who's good at what and who's willing to talk about what. So kind of a lot of our efforts right now we're kind of toward building up that database. And then we talked about a little bit about the ILRU thing. And I don't know if you wanted to talk about that or if you want me to bring it up.
Okay.
Or if do you even know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do, and you feel free to talk about
Okay. So most of most people that I know for a very long time, ILRU has been the purveyor of technical assistance. And by that, I don't mean like tech support like computers. I mean like, hey, I've got a question about the Rehab Act. What does that mean? Or, hey, I've got a question about the core services. How do I do this? Or there's something going on at my center. How do I handle that? They did a lot of webinars, a lot of different programs, a lot of training for anyone who was a part of the Independent Living Network. As of October 1st, so yesterday, they lost their contract to do that. And it was instead given to the Center for Inclusive Disaster Relief.
it.
So as of yesterday, that is our new technical assistance group. So if we have the guidance at this time from ACL is that if you have questions, or you need some technical assistance, that you should reach out to the program officers and not anyone at ILRU, because they're no longer being paid to provide those services. Alyssa, thank you so much. I don't know why I can never get that name correctly.
It's they're always
Sure.
PIDs to me, so
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
you,
And this is brand new information, and like it's slowly filtering through the networks. It's just a lot of people need to be told, and a lot of people are trying to figure out where we go from here. So there was a fair amount of time at yesterday's call, kind of talking about that and kind of discussing what it meant and how NASIL could support um, the Silks, especially because right now there isn't really good TA for them. Probably we're not sure. It could be that we're all panicking for no reason, and um these folks are going to be amazing, but um everyone's a little bit skeptical, if to go out on a limb and to put it very nicely. It's growing pains. No one's really sure what's going to happen next, and I think that's really difficult. And we've had ILRU for 2, 3, maybe 4 decades. So
Mhm.
that's a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge to just kind of sweep under the rug, for lack of a better way of you know, expressing it.
Well, and I appreciate you talking about that too, because um, I see it as twofold in a way, because like both centers and silks are having to kind of account for who do they turn to, and like silks, um, advocates make the worst. They do not tell their own story the best, right? So we don't usually celebrate our accomplishments in the best way as advocates, because that's not what we're there for. So we're not able to always say, hey, we do this super well and we can help you doing this. I mean, we almost need a marketer to help with advocates to do that. And so silks that do things super well, we need to know that, and centers, because it's advocacy, but inward, really. I mean, it's not even outreach. It's not advocacy. It's just making us stronger. But we need something like that, or we won't survive. And it doesn't. It's not even grant based. It's human based, because we are learning that by doing our job. And other people have learned different things, and we're able to learn from them. And if we don't reach out to other people and find what works good for us, then so we almost need, like, where sills and silks can get together. I don't know, it might be called April. And but where we can have a time where we can really do a celebration of what we think we bring to the table as a center or as a silk. And maybe we can just, have a better celebration of who we are, because if we were not doing good jobs, um, things would not be getting done in the United States. So, I mean, every center and every silk has to be very proud of themselves and what they do. But when there are specific things, we need to actually, like, I want to know more about how can I help with my DSE and getting better relationships. So I might call Tyler now, because I know that, but I didn't know that he had that type of relationship and could tell me. So it's all about knowledge. And I'm just rambling because it's one of those days. We're moving offices, so I've been moving all morning, so I'm just tired now. Well, but when you lose like an ILRU to somebody new, it's gonna make you either skip a step, or you're gonna like be lost, and we can't have people be lost and not know where they can go. And we
well,
just
and
have
this is Alyssa, that the ramifications reach far and wide, right? It's not just ILRU. April and Nickel were
Mhm.
both a large part of the training and technical assistance contract. So
Yeah.
our peer mentoring program is gone. They're just, you know, we did have that meeting yesterday with Richard, and it was more like a memorial service. I mean, it was just staggering that decades worth of building those relationships and building that content, and that all of the IL world relies upon for moving forward in hiring new employees and
Mhm.
training your board and just all of the things. So the fallout from this is just, you know, it's just going to rock IL. I mean, my hope is that, um, you know, everything is great. Change can be good. And I understand that. I just think, you know, it's, we have, we don't yet understand the, you know, the way in which this will rock IL.
And I just have to interject that there are a lot of people with different types of disabilities where change is not great for them, and sometimes when, especially a change of this magnitude, um, things should almost have been rolled out in like smaller amounts, so you don't just get that. Sorry, we're going to be changing, and because people panic, and that's the thing that we don't want is panic or chaos or anything like that. But that does happen because people have been turning to ILRU for, as you said, decades, and I look at it all the time. Well, especially if I'm looking for a center in an area or you know something, it so it it's sad, but it is part of life. And Tyler.
And
Oh,
Don, I just want to add to what you're saying. I know that every new staff member I got when I was at a SIL, that's where we went for our initial training on everything from the IL philosophy to the 5 core services and our delivery methods. I do want to, I am torn apart by this news, just as everybody else is. But I also want to point out that, ILRU still exists. They're looking for continued funding. April is looking for continued funding. I'm sure that Nickel is looking for continued funding. And there are some funding streams specific to some of the things that we've done, like advocacy, and hopefully these kind of partnerships that you're talking about and that peer support, whether it be, through the way that ILRU does it or other organizations do it, will still involve SILs and continue in a way that we can share that expertise that you were talking about earlier. SILCs have expertise in this. Having that organized in a way that it can be shared is really important. And I just want to say we're not all giving up, right? There are a lot of other resources and we're reaching out for those. So as well as being hopeful for this new organization, even though I share my shock and doubts with everyone, I think, but that isn't the only option for continuing the work that we're doing.
right. No, you're absolutely correct. And it gives us a various amount of resources to look at. I'll just say it that way. There you go. Tyler, sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm kind of two thoughts. Maybe a little bit hopeful is that this is only a year. The contract that was signed only lasts 1 year. So could be that a year from now we're saying, hey, that was a weird hiccup, wasn't it? Let's go back to ILRU. I can't promise anything. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. But I do have that kind of rattling around at the back of my head. And the other thing is that I've been in a lot of conversations about this today. My email has been blowing up. And one of the things that I kind of said to everyone was, oh, yeah, now it's time for us to lean on each other, right? Maybe it's a blessing in disguise. Maybe this will force us to work with each other rather than, um, ILRU is great in a lot of ways, but one of the things that it did was it did sort of make some of this information faceless, right? And I mean, maybe I'm stretching, but I feel like this is an opportunity for us to sort of say, hey, you know what? Let's work on figuring out what we know. Let's figure out who we can talk to. Let's figure out how to sustain each other rather than relying on someone else to sustain us. It could be a good thing, you know. And maybe I'm being way too optimistic, but
No.
I'm also trying to keep myself from panicking because I am one of those people with a disability that does not like change. And this is, like you said, a lot of change really quickly. Catherine, nobody knew until yesterday.
Well, and this is Alyssa. I will just say the kind of the elephant in the room is that I personally feel like the announcement for the new funding came out under the radar very quietly because it was such a significant change from what TNTA has looked like over the last several decades. I mean, there was nothing recognizable in what they're calling a competitive contract. It wasn't, a request for proposals. It wasn't a grant. It's a competitive contract. And there was nothing recognizable in it. There's no, peer mentoring isn't in it. It was just so completely different. And that was kind of red flag number one for everyone. And then so for this to just kind of be the culmination of, we're doing this award. Oh, and by the way, it's not to IL. Okay. So, it'll be interesting to see how it rolls out. I know that it's, already kind of reverberating through IL and people are not happy about the changing course.
This is Don. I do think it has come at a good time right before the April conference, though, because kind of Tyler alluded to it, but I think we can start putting humanity back into the independent living centers and the SILCs instead of and leaning on each other instead of looking for some entity that is going to do it all for us. If we lean on each other, I mean, this is a perfect time. Let's reconnect, re-strengthen our networks during the conference and do this. So we can actually be stronger in spite of it, not because of it, but in spite of it. And I think we can. I mean, we're a resilient people. So we can do just about anything, right? That's what I look towards anyway. It wasn't what I was going to be talking about mainly today, but so and I know we don't have very many people, but the last time we just kind of touched a little bit on whether people were doing any voting registration, voting events or anything in their states. If anybody has done any or have something coming up, feel free to talk about them if you want.
This is Tyler. I don't see anyone else jumping up, and I don't want to dominate, but we're actually doing a lot. We have the Disability Vote Coalition that runs in the state. The centers were also tapped by the election commission to do surveys of all of the polling places. So we're actually going to make sure that they're accessible prior to elections. We've been running that program for 2 or 3 years now. Additionally, we're doing kind of a social media push to get out the vote, involving that's maybe not going as well. People running it are not super tech savvy. So there's been some growing pains there. But like just creating videos about why we go out to vote, that kind of thing. And the Disability Vote Coalition in Wisconsin is kind of a conglomeration of a lot of different entities. So it's a lot of different disability groups working together to kind of both get out the vote and to make voting more accessible, especially in Wisconsin, where that's been kind of if you've been paying attention to the national news, a little bit fraught in this state. So it's a lot of us kind of fighting stupid rules that really disenfranchise folks with disabilities and disenfranchise people in different other more marginalized communities as well. So that I like it's too much to sort of distill down, but like we are doing a lot with the voting.
Well, it sounds like a lot. That's good. I like that.
And this is a list I did just drop in the chat. A link to a federal judge yesterday blocked a portion of a new Alabama law limiting help with absentee ballot applications, saying that it violates the Voting Rights Act. So that is definitely a win.
Good. Yeah, we need it. And it is what, a month away now, almost, the election.
Yep.
It is the 2nd, yeah. So it's just over a month. So that's good. This time around, it seems, at least in Nebraska and Iowa area, people seem to be a little more engaged, and I like that. I like when we have people interested and engaged. You can't always get all of that. Oh, and wanting to do and take part in events and wanting us to do events. And normally you don't have people asking for events to be done. So, and we have one coming up on Thursday. So I'm happy about that. It's just, we had been doing registration on college campuses, and it is unbelievable how many college kids are really wanting to vote compared to 4 years ago. I mean, there's a big difference. I mean, we've been keeping track over like the course of my 12 years here, and it's the college campuses and the community colleges have not only become more active themselves, but the interest by the students has grown exponentially to each of the campaigns, it seems. So, because I mean, over campus wide, but specifically with the students with disabilities. So, something has to be going right. I would think that people actually are wanting to vote. So, the other thing I wanted to talk about too, besides anybody that wants to talk about anything about the hurricane and the devastation, is, well, first, I guess if anybody has any updates about their area or anything. I'm trying to see nobody's from the areas that have been hit, but anybody that knows of any of the centers in North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, if you've heard anything from anybody, anything that you've heard, Alyssa?
I have gotten, a couple cancellations for people who were coming to the April conference. In South Carolina, our own Rachel, our comms person, is, on day 6 or 7 without power. We have 4 folks coming that are registered to attend from Asheville, North Carolina. Which was one of the hardest hit areas, just completely wiped off the map. I reached out, but of course have not gotten a response. They have nothing, no power, nothing. Roads are still shut down. So we are just kind of in standby mode to respond if anyone reaches out. Of course, Partnership for Inclusive Disaster Strategies is all over it. That's what they do. I am sure that they are, you know, very, very busy right now,
Mm.
sending out responses. So
Right.
yeah, we will keep, you know, we'll be at the ready. I did contact, I had a meeting with the hotel in Chicago and advised them to, you know, be monitoring the situation and express my sincere hope that they would honor any no-shows under the force majeure clause, because people have nothing. They have no power. There's no cell service. There is nothing. So I wanted them to be prepared if they get a bunch of, you know, no-shows at the hotel.
That's good. Okay.
I did also speak to a couple of our CILs in North Carolina, and they are more on the eastern side of North Carolina and weren't terribly affected. But they said that they are sending support to help the CILs in the areas that were most impacted. So we're seeing a little bit of CIL peer support for each other during that time, and I was grateful to hear that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. So as we go further into this fiscal year, which basically has just started, you know, we do have certain priorities that we try to keep, and I don't know if you happen to have those right there, Alyssa, that you can put up, the advocacy priorities. I put them in my, well, I did put them in my committee report, didn't I?
I don't have them handy.
And then, because we do want to be able to talk about what's happening now, right? But we want to, because we have to be flexible. We have to be flexible to do whatever is going on at the moment. But we also have to look at what we had decided were our most necessary items and priorities to do as an advocacy committee. So the 5 things that were brought up, and so for focusing, you know, this fiscal year. So the main one was still increased funding for centers for independent living. So we know that that's going to also depend on a presidential election. Reauthorization of the Rehabilitation Act. Increased funding for HCBS self-directed services and better pay for personal assistance. Overused and unnecessary restrictive guardianships and supportive decision-making, then broadband accessibility in rural areas. If one of those things are working really well for you in an area like broadband had been so great for rural, like our rural consumers during COVID, because all of a sudden they were able to get it just because of COVID. And now we don't have that anymore. So we have a lot of people without any type of internet at all, and that restricts us, restricts them. And, you know, we end up sometimes wondering whether that's even goes into like an Olmstead violation, when you end up getting into a lot of different things where you know, can it be? Because you're not being in the least restrictive environment when you can't call out, or not call out, but have peer-to-peer. You can't have trainings. You can't do anything unless if you go someplace but you're basically housebound. You're stuck, right? If you can't drive, if you happen to be in some sort of chair that won't go on the little handy van, if you have one, transportation, is another thing. So that's one of my issues, is about, like, so why did we have Olmsted if we're not going to, be pushing Olmsted violations? I do that in Nebraska all the time because I'm on the Olmsted Transportation Committee, and we have no transportation for people with disabilities in Nebraska. And so, like, from Omaha to Lincoln, the two biggest cities, it costs $449 for somebody in a wheelchair to get there. Now, who is going to be able to afford that? And is that really within the law? That's where I tell them, file an Olmsted violation. And we'll have the DOJ come and take a look at Nebraska. But these are things that I think a lot of times, I mean, we did that in Kansas a lot, because we weren't being able to get HCBS waivers. We weren't being able to assess people for the waivers. If we don't know about these things, and we can't have people be able to even get a waiver then that can help expand how they can live, we're not going to be able to do anything. So that is against the law. And so, there is a piece of advocacy in there that I it's just a piece for me that I like about doing that. But it's all over the country like that. It doesn't matter where you live. New York City, you're not going to have accessible transportation all the way through New York City either. It's just, it's a question I have out to all of you, because I don't know. I think we should be asking more about Olmsted than just once a year and celebrating the decision, because it's great that there was that decision. It's just like with the ADA. I mean, we celebrate the ADA every year, but the enforcement piece needs to happen before we can really celebrate too much. All right, I'm done ranting. Sorry. So, Tyler, in your state, what do you see as the biggest issue facing centers and the silk right now?
Admittedly, centers and the silk are good. I think, funding probably. Like if you were to ask them, that's what they would say.
Yeah.
Sorry, because I jumped right to consumers, because really, like, where most of or a lot of our efforts are being focused on is long-term issues with long-term care, managed care organizations, that kind of thing. There's a massive bias toward institutional care in the state, on both sides of the aisle. It's not sort of separated between Republicans and Democrats. So we're really trying to parse out how to divest the legislature of their thinking and re-educate them about why community-based living is so important, and why Olmsted kind of, to your point, why Olmsted exists in the first place, and kind of convincing them to stop throwing money at the giant centers. Because one of the other things that keeps happening is MCOs are getting bought out by massive national corporations. So, you used to have, trying to think of, like, there was a place called Family Care, used to be like its own private thing, right? Own its own company. They got bought out by Humana or someone like that. I don't remember exactly what all the details are, but they all keep getting bought up by these huge corporations that that aren't really nimble enough to deal with the nuances of the systems that we have in place in Wisconsin. And I'm sure that's true in other states too. You know, they're giant and they don't really have that sort of ability to turn on a dime or even on a quarter if they need to.
Absolutely. No, that's true, I think, all over. Yeah. Appreciate that.
And this is Alyssa. John Oliver, I don't know if you all are familiar with him, that he has the HBO special last week tonight. He did a big he always, he is funny and he's a comedian, but he really does some hard hitting exposés. And not that long ago, he did one on the MCOs, the Centenes and the anthems, and it was, you know, it was hard to hear because so many of those, well, the ones that I just mentioned are invested in, kind of embedded with us in IL. But the quality of care and access to services, really suffers under some of these big conglomerate healthcare whatevers. So yeah, if you are interested, it was a really interesting watch.
This is Tyler. I'm going to jump into. I love John Oliver and I love his exposés. I also, I don't know if this has anything to do with anything. It just occurs to me that sometimes we get like so hyper about these evil corporations and they're not doing good things. I'm not defending them, but I'm wondering if our approach is, instead of figuring out how to combat the evil, trying to figure out how to meet them where they are and show them that what they're doing, however great their intent is entirely misguided.
Mhm.
Because I really think that's the issue. I think they don't. I always get the sense that they, at least a fair number of the people. I think there are people at the very tops maybe who know what they're doing. And I think there are a lot of people who think they're doing really good things and really believe that what they're doing is for the in the best interest of the people that they're working with. And they also, because they're so big, haven't had a chance to see how it really does impact, how those decisions that they're making shake out when you look at them at an individual basis or within a community. And be interesting to see if there's a way to like sort of approach it from that side instead of the side of you're evil and we have to vanquish evil at all costs, because I don't think that works. I think we just end up running into brick walls. They're too big to take down that way. We're never gonna make a dent. But if we can change their minds, maybe we can start to change the way that they think about things.
Yeah, and this is Alyssa. I do think that, it is definitely a positive, it's a plus that they have asked for a seat at our table. Yes, they kind of buy their way in,
Mhm.
with support and other things, and that's fine. We appreciate that. But, there is that good faith offer that they want to serve IL in a better way. So, I'm grateful for that opportunity, for that open dialogue. And I do think that they're responsive.
And and I guess it depends too. So like in Nebraska, we have 3 MCOs, and we've talked with them, the Cellcast, for a while, and we have a lot of people that have a lot of complaints with the MCOs, and it's like we need to actually have the people talk to you, not talk to us. And they're like, we don't want to talk to people with disabilities. And I'm like, why do you not want to talk to people with disabilities? That's strange. Don't be strange. And they were like, well, we can hold meetings, but we only want to have like 5 people at a time. And I'm like, that's not going to work. I said, people with disabilities are not all like me who's going to be a loudmouth in your face and tell you how it is. Some people like to have a group before they'll even say anything because they need to feel safe that you're not going to take away what you have given them because that's what they've been taught. That's the culture that you have made for people with disabilities. And so what we've been trying, and we had a huge, I mean, it was over 100 people, the 3 MCOs, and it went well. But what we're trying to do, and what I'm not going to give up on, is I want a disability person that is like basically their gatekeeper for all 3 MCOs. So you have somebody you can talk to who might know a little bit more about what you're going through than, you know, somebody you're going to call up and then they're going to deny you. But then they can go and be responsible for that. You need a person that you can talk to who has experiences like yourself. And so you need that liaison, that disability liaison as a first step. And so we're trying to get that. And I think it'll happen. I mean, they haven't ruled it out yet, and they see how it can be productive because their bottom line is money, right? So they don't want people to be upset with them. If it's going to make them have an improved image, then they see that as being great. I don't care about their image so much as what they give consumers. Are they going to give consumers a good experience? Or are they going to give consumers what they need? Or are we going to have people waiting, 6 years for a wheelchair, or somebody who was 16 had the same wheelchair since they were 2? How does that even happen? Those are the stories that, I never understand.
So I live in Wyoming, and in some of the cities, we have these issues with the nursing homes that are being bought out and what we're talking about here. But in my experience, in our most rural counties, there are additional problems with the nursing homes. First of all, Wyoming didn't do a Medicaid expansion. We're closing hospitals where medical care isn't available, which is putting more people into the nursing homes there. And a lot of our nursing homes are just flat out not educated on Olmsted in any way, shape, or form. And we've had doctors that just flat tell somebody who had a stroke 6 years ago, you're not only not leaving this week, you're never leaving. And we've had to step in. Our SIL does transition services, and sometimes I don't want to make that comparison between the large and the small, but the knowledge, I'm thinking of one county in particular, that people won't go to the doctor because they think the doctor has the power to put them in a nursing home and make them stay there. And the hospital believes that, and the social workers at the hospital. And so advocating over there, you'd think they're small and you could do a much better job. And this isn't all of the nursing homes in our state. I guess I'm just pointing out, it's not always those big organizations that really need us to partner and that they need to listen to the consumers in their counties. And that's also an area for state advocacy, because the way we fund hospitals, the way we fund, in that particular county that I'm talking about, there's absolutely no, self-directed care is the only choice. There are no CNA agencies in that county because it can't be supported. And so there's a whole funding model with a whole lot of choices that have resulted in that for a lot of Wyoming counties. And so it's educating those nursing homes, educating people in those communities about what's possible, and then advocating at the state level, because anyway, I just wanted to bring up, it's not always just those, it's not their size that makes that a difficult problem, right? Always.
Very true. Thank you. Although, you know, I play around with our nursing homes a little bit, because, and I think y'all know that, so STIs are very rampant in nursing homes, right? And you can't get, so say I was 75, right? And there was a lady that was 80 next to me, and I say I wanted to have sex. I'd have to do a call button, wait for a condom, right? And that could take half hour, 2 hours to get. So by then, I'd probably be asleep. Point is, if they're not having safe sex in nursing homes. So I usually go in with a little basket full of condoms, and that way, it shocks them, what it did, but now it gives me a reason to talk to them, and then it gives me a reason to talk to the patient there, because that's how I can see if people want to get out, can get out, do all that, you know. So it's a way to start that transition process, but it also has life-saving things behind it, so you don't end up, you know, having gonorrhea or something, you know, else, because that is on the rise, and they're not going to do anything about that, because people have sex no matter what age. And so you gotta use what tools you have with you. So, you know, condoms work.
No pun intended on the tools. I'm sorry.
Right.
Moment of levity.
Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Don, you're matching your shirt.
Sorry. Herschel, let's see. Institutional Rescue and Recovery Coalition. Battling with state senator majority leader to pass legislation called Humanized Long-Term Care. That's nice. Senate has a big investment in nursing homes in Chicago area. The one thing we're working on in Illinois. Oh, okay. That's
And
good.
Don, this is Alyssa. I replied to Herschel that IRRC will be at the April conference. I invited them to be part of the welcome, and I believe he will be addressing that. Herschel, is that correct, that there is like a sign on for that specific issue, right?
Good.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, it's a day activity, and it's a letter on October 17th. Call to action, I'm sorry, to where legislation and other things, but they'll also be able to sign up there as well.
Okay, thank you. This is Alyssa. Yeah, he will be addressing that issue to the general session on Saturday's opening. Welcome.
Awesome. Arius, you've been awfully quiet today. Are you okay?
He's right here. We're in the same office. We moved offices in Spokane, and we haven't quite got it down to where like whose speaker and mic is on.
Oh, gotcha. Understand that.
Well, that's fun. You speak and it sounds like Arius. I don't know.
Yeah, I forgot to tell you, Don, I upgraded. We got staff now.
All
Wow.
right.
We got like so it was just me and Aaron in here, but now it's me, Aaron, Jennifer, and Nathan. So it's an office of 4.
Wow.
Nice.
And
Right, moving up. All right.
Mhm.
Congratulations.
And then they made me the lead here, whatever that means.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
no, I'm just playing. I love my job. And so Yeah, that's why I'm not talking, because we're in the same office and I don't want it to echo.
All right. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. Good to see you. So I really don't have anything else myself, I guess. If anybody else has anything they want to talk about, we have about 10 minutes, 9 minutes. I don't want to hold up the ASL interpreter past 4. Well, 4 my time, sorry. So Alyssa, do you have any tantalizing tidbits about Chicago?
No, other than it's going to be kind of a traffic nightmare. Apparently there, which is part of the for the course for big cities, there's a lot of construction, but also I just learned last week that there's a gigantic marathon happening while we're there. And so there will be road closures and all kinds of hubbub happening around where we are. We're competing with space in the hotel with marathoners, and they are staging at the convention center, but on the far side, so that shouldn't impact us. But for anybody coming to the April conference, when you come down from your guest room and you see a bunch of runners, that's what's happening, a marathon. So should be interesting. Plan for extra travel, Herschel. If you're driving over, yeah, just be aware. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on, and it's all new to me. You know, I keep saying this is the first time I've ever experienced this. You know, and then everyone in Chicago was like, "Oh God, you really are rural." Yeah, I do not do the big city, so it's been interesting. So plan for extra time for travel.
Sounds like nice weather though, so that's good.
Yes, yes.
Okay, folks. I don't have anything else. Anybody have anything they need to say? Alyssa, I'll let you say goodbye and take us out.
All right. Thank everyone so much, and we will see you next month.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.